Well, good morning, everybody. Like Cindy said, my name's Amy Latzel. I'm from the North Central District Health Department in O'Neill, Nebraska. I've been there for about 5 years. I'm the environmental health coordinator there, so I do anything that has to do with the environment. I do lead poisoning investigations. I deal with private water wells. I do tick and mosquito trapping in the summertime. All kinds of fun things. But today I would like to talk about a project that I've been doing for the last 2 years in the school system, and we'll go ahead and get started. Got it. All right. So why private wells matter? Private wells are common in rural areas, especially in Nebraska. I would say probably about 20% of our population has private water wells. They are not regulated by public health or public systems at all. Homeowners responsible for testing, we all know that. Nitrates can pose serious health risks. So private wells are important but often overlooked by rural public health issue. So the challenge, many families don't test regularly for whatever reason that is. There's a slew of reasons. Again, we kind of talked about, other people have talked about the reasons why they don't test. It's expensive. It's not something that they think about. A lot of our older populations are like, I've been drinking this water my whole life. I got to die from something. So when we take it from a perspective of a child, it makes them kind of change their view a little bit. So the risk awareness is limited for a lot of those people, and traditional outreach doesn't always reach households. So we needed a more effective and engaging way to connect with families. So we took a public health approach to the private well outreach. We wanted to reach households through the eyes of a child. We wanted to promote water testing behaviors and identify potential health risks early on with hopes of building long-term awareness in rural communities. A lot of our schools have, and I'm sure your guys' schools do too, but we have programs as the kids grow older. We have FFA programs, we have FCCLA, those types of things. A lot of our kids go to school for ag-based business, precision ag, all those types of things. So it's something that carries over into their high school years and beyond that. So we approach this as a public health strategy, not just as an educational project. So our solution was, actually it was my solution, was to create the Citizen Science Project. It was an already project that was going on through the University of Nebraska and UNMC. It's something that they could do online. It was a citizen science project for anybody and everybody. They do it twice a year in May and September, and you get online and you request test strips to test the water. And you can test well water, surface water, pretty much anything you want. So we expanded the Citizen Science Project that way. It was already in place, but we tweaked it just a little bit. So I had actually, and I can't even tell you what website that I was on, but kind of going through all the private well stuff when I first started doing this, came across this book, and it was called Mr. Mouse Gets a New Well. So I was like, oh, this would be fun to take into the schools, read to the kids, all that sort of thing. And I just had to figure out what age group that kind of focused on. So I chose the third graders. So we go into third grade classrooms. We have 34 schools in my district. I cover 9 counties. So it's about 14,400 square miles, but we only have a population of just under 45,000 in those 9 counties. So very sparsely, I have a huge area to cover with, like I said, the 34 schools. So So why we chose to engage with the youth. Kids are naturally curious. When you tell them they're citizen scientists, they kind of almost take that as a role playing. like their eyes just light up and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to be a citizen scientist. They have no clue what that is, but they're like, okay, yeah. It's almost like you're going to tell them they're going to become president someday. They just think it's the coolest thing. Influences conversation at home, so when they take the results of their samples home, they can discuss with their families and be like, hey, have we ever had our well tested? We go over the fact that if they have any younger siblings, so the kids are truly concerned when they talk about this subject. It creates long-term awareness again, and then parents often listen differently when information comes from their kiddos. Students become messengers for the water safety within their own households. And these are actually some of my pictures that I've taken of my classrooms. So how it all works. So each school I have to schedule. Takes a little bit of time for the teachers to get back to me because they have busy schedules. But once I am in communication with them, I have created, this is one of two documents. This document here is one that goes home with the kiddos. It goes with a little baggie. You'll see a baggie at the bottom. There's a card that goes in the bag along with a little vial for them to collect their water sample. I really specify in the letter that we're really looking for private well water, but I'll accept surface water too. And of course, basically any type of water that you bring in, we're more than happy to test just to get the kids to do a hands-on project. Within the letter, it explains how to collect your sample if it's a well sample, how to, there's a requirement in the UNL UNMC data part where I put my information in. It requires longitude, latitude, so we stuck that all in there on how to figure out your longitude, latitude of the area that you're collecting your sample from. And then there's a few places like resources and stuff that you can check out. You can check out the Sioux Well Water Project through UNL because I have the website on there. And there's also a map that shows the nitrates of Nebraska and where they're the worst. And actually my area is probably one of the worst spots or hot spots on the map. So we send the kids home. I send them to the schools. The kiddos collect their water samples, bring them back to the teacher. Teacher refrigerates them until I come on that day. And then when I get there on that day, I do slideshows and kind of just make it super fun and understanding. I've had to, like I said, this is my second year, so this year I kind of tweaked it just a little bit more because I was having issues with kiddos that would get high samples and they would just completely freak out. Like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna get cancer, mom's gonna get cancer, my little brother's gonna die, and just like freak out. So I had to tone it down just a little bit because I didn't want that approach at all. And actually some of the kids, you can kind of get a feel of the kiddos. Some of the kids are very shut down and quiet when their samples come back high. So we don't point that out. We just say, oh, we've got a couple high samples, and kids will be like, who is it? I'm like, well, I said, we're not gonna worry about that part because I said, one, I said, we know we have an issue, and I said, two, we're gonna do something to fix it. So the process is very simple, it's interactive, it's easy for schools to participate in, and it's easy for the teachers because I provide all the supplies. They don't have to worry about anything for that hour. They just sit there and absorb. I even had some teachers that have asked for the little kits as well after the fact. So it's kind of nice that they get involved as well. All right, so what we test. I don't test for much. Our main focus is on nitrates. So this project actually tests for nitrates, nitrites, and phosphates. And like I said, the kiddos, I get samples from city water, private wells, surface water, and then the kids observe the change in the test strips themselves. Of course, I walk around. A lot of them have questions. Test strips are not foolproof, and of course, I have third graders that are doing the testing, so sometimes the colors are hard to determine of what level it is, because it's not a very specific test, it's more of a range. So, this year, and I should have put my numbers from last year. Last year I started late, last school year I started late in the year. I think I started at like December. So I think I got 22 schools last year. I was able to reach 32 of my schools this year. And the only reason I didn't get 100% was one of my schools is 3rd and 4th combined. And there's actually 2 schools in that district. So the school in one area is 3rd and 4th as well. So I will rotate every other year between those 2 schools. And the other school was a private school, only had 5 students, and they didn't have any 3rd graders. So I figure it's a win. Let's see. So, like I said, 577 students total were participated in the project. Not all of those 577 brought in water samples. I do have a lot of the teachers that will bring in extra samples. They'll ask neighbors and stuff, so the kids are able to still test the water. We have taken samples from the schools and stuff where they will test the water from the school, just so they're able to do hands-on. Out of those 577 students, 166 of those kiddos brought in private well samples, and 22 of them ended up being elevated for nitrate results above 10 parts per million. So the results shared directly with families, and a follow-up call is made after the fact. So we ended up with some extra funding this year, so we got to tweak the program even a little bit more. We got some private funding that we were able to reach out to those families that had high levels and offer them a state lab test for free. We pay for everything. And then beyond that, if their results still come back high, we offer them some mitigation resources. It's a reimbursement program. A lot of our NRDs in Nebraska do a cost share. So that's kind of what we did. The NRDs have a little bit more specific criteria to meet in order to be able to get that reimbursement. So like their wells have to be registered and all those types of things. And I didn't want to do that to begin with because I'm still planting the seed in hopes that the word gets spread. So we didn't make those stipulations. I think we reimburse up to $800 for an RO system. But so, yeah, it's gone over well so far. Our funding is limited, so I can't offer a whole lot of reimbursements. I think we did 4. I honestly have not had any families reach out at all saying that they want the RO system. Most of them, when I call, they are aware that there is an issue, but they're kind of like, just drilled the well a couple years ago. I don't really want to mess with it. So, anyways. So, private well testing results. 13% of the private wells exceeded the nitrate standards. So this further highlights the ongoing risk in the unregulated systems. Like I said, 34 schools in our district of 9 counties, and 2 of those schools, like I told you, 2 of those schools didn't participate due to unforeseen reasons. So, like I said, 14,400 square miles, so I have a huge district. I do a lot of driving. At one point, when I go out west, I actually go into time change, so I'm into mountain time, so I have to take that into account. But it's so fun. Like, the kids are just, some of these kids amaze me, and you can totally tell that it's an ag community, because these kids will come up to be, I've had kids come up and be like, okay, so I live in a house. My parents don't own it, we rent. Whose job is it to test the well? I'm like, that's a good question. I'm like, probably the homeowner, but if the homeowner isn't going to do it, you should probably do it because you're the one that's drinking the water. And he's like, okay. They truly are just little sponges, and they're just so fun to engage with. So 1 in 8 of our wells, again, tested above the 10 parts per million. So we were able to reinforce the visual impact. Each elevated result represented a household and highlights importance of proactive testing. Even one elevated result matters because it represents a family's potentially exposed to unsafe drinking water. And so we also teach about algae blooms. So that was part of the kiddos that bring in surface water samples. We have a lot of lakes in Nebraska that get these algae blooms every summer. So it's nice to be able to relate to them. A lot of the kids go camping and fishing and boating, all the things in the summertime. We've had some of like the private ponds and stuff test high for this stuff too, around agricultural areas. So it was nice to be able to relate environment stuff to personal stuff as well. So some of the students tested surface water samples. We discussed the harmful algae blooms and how they are created and what time of year. And we also discussed the fact that if you heat up a nitrate, the nitrates actually will go higher. So also another point for them not to boil their water. So kind of hard to explain to them that you can boil your water to get rid of the bacteria, but you can't boil your water to get rid of nitrates. So it's kind of a little bit of a balancing act. So then we connected environmental and public health with both of those aspects, and then we've also made good communication with the schools. So during COVID, nobody liked public health because we were the ones that were shutting down the businesses, changing the rules, telling you needed to wear masks. Everybody hated us, schools in particular, because they wanted to continue their sports programs, and we were always constantly shutting them down. So students began to understand how nutrient pollution impacts both the ecosystem and human health. So the impacts on the families. So early detection of contamination, results shared clearly with families in plain language, and list a bunch of resources. So after we do all the testing, the kiddos get another sheet of paper to send home with all their results on them. I also collect all the results, and I also put them into the Sewell Water Project data system so that they are able to continue to make those maps. It improved awareness and engagement, and then the students helped connect schools to households. So the project extended environmental health conversations beyond the classroom into the homes. So lessons learned. Strong school partnerships were essential for this. I have a lot of the superintendents, the principals, some of them will even come into the classroom and assist, because some of my classrooms I have 58 kids trying to do testing at the same time. So the first year that I did it with those larger classrooms, we actually brought in a lot of the FFA kids to kind of come in and assist and get a feel for that stuff, because we also have a program that's called Know Your Well in Nebraska. It lost funding here a couple of years ago, but I think there's still some schools that continue to do this. But the students actually go out on site and test wells for farmers or ag communities. So it's something that will continue as they grow older. So results shared clearly. Oh, I'm on the wrong one. Sorry, guys. The student engagement was really high, especially this year. I think a lot more of the teachers understood the project, and they would send out the water samples early. They were sending text messages to the families, like remember to bring your water samples in. So the amount of water samples versus last year was much greater this year, so I was very pleased with that. And then we were reaching families on a different approach. So challenges. Again, large geography created logistical challenges. Sample quality varied at times, so I would have kids that sometimes would bring in me some snow, or they would bring in some water from their hot tub. And it's just a matter of, I know my sheets that go home, they are fairly wordy, but I condensed it down in plain language as much as I possibly could, and I think some parents just like, another project I got to deal with when I get back. I'm doing the homework and not my kid. But that's okay. They still got a chance to test their water, and they still learned about off their friends and stuff who did bring in actual samples. And the engagement and partnerships outweighed the operational challenges. So next steps. Funding could expand the reach a little bit more. Funding received this year to use for the state labs and the RO systems. which was very helpful, and we actually just found out that we will be getting that grant again for next year, so I'm super excited about that. Opportunities beyond the classroom. So when I originally started this, it was the summer before school started, so I thought I would just take it out into the community. And I actually went and collected a bunch of the water samples. So I was going to different rivers and lakes and stopping at different places and asking if I could have a water sample and stuff. So I was taking this to county fairs, and we have things called farm and home shows that I was taking to. And we had a lot of the 4-H kids, so I would go during the 4-H time of the kids doing their stuff, and they were super excited about it, to learn about some of this stuff, so that was fun as well. And then potential replication within Nebraska. So I've had, the first year I didn't have very much success with any of the other health departments. There's a lot of things going on that year. This year, this is probably the 5th time I've spoke about this project at various conferences. And so now, within the last probably 6 months, I've had 2 more health departments interested in doing this program. Probably not on the same scale as I'm doing it, but at least they were interested in all the paperwork and stuff that I had behind it. So this model has strong potential for expansion and long-term sustainability, possibly adopting a curriculum to go alongside it for classroom teacher use. So UNL and UNMC has reached out to me wondering what else we can do to expand the project a little bit more. So they've talked about doing some curriculum to go along with it. Whether that be just specifically for 3rd graders, I don't know, but more to come on that. So, taking it a step further, again, my communities are very small. I think the biggest community we have in my district has like 10,000 people. So we have quite a few hospitals in our district, but we only have 2 right now that deliver babies. So we have something called baby steps, and I think everybody calls it differently, but baby steps is something that the mama goes in like a couple weeks before they have their baby, sign all their paperwork, go over all the things, procedures and all that stuff. So I thought I took this as an opportunity to add in some informational things based on, I do one on lead and I do another one on nitrate as well. Just some information. If you have a private well, you need to test. If you plan to bottle feed, use that bottled water. If you're unsure of what your levels are, that sort of thing. Sorry, I lost my way. So we connect infant nitrate education, private well programs, and environmental health initiatives, and then it builds on existing public health outreach that we already do. So it was basically just another flyer, and we try to make it as simple as possible and not too wordy as well. And we do this in Spanish forms too, because we do have a small Spanish population in some of our counties. So the big picture. So this reaches underserved populations, even those families that might rent and don't know who is supposed to be the ones that test their well. Builds trust to the schools and strengthens our partnerships. It turns awareness into action. And this is a scalable model for rural public health engagement for translating the data into real-world action. And it looks like I really talked too fast because I'm early. Great. Love that. I'm not done. Calm down, 3rd graders. Calm down. I need you to be quiet. Okay. So I really appreciate you guys letting me come to this conference. This has been awesome. This is a totally different perspective than some of the other conferences that we come to. Like I kind of like the more specified conferences that kind of focus on one thing in general. It's not 50 different things and you got to decide which one you're going to go to and did you absorb anything from it or anything. But I invite questions. I invite comments. If you have ideas. I loved your speak yesterday. It was awesome. I truly think that some of the stuff that you guys do is awesome. I'm a man of one, so but happy to adopt some of those things. I would love more collaboration opportunities. I've reached out to a lot of the NRDs. A lot of the NRDs already do some of this stuff, so it's a matter of not stepping on somebody's toes, but trying to create a partnership. Yeah, and like I said, we've made some connections with some hospitals. I would like to get into clinics a little bit more. Sometimes that's a little difficult because we have some critical access hospitals that are privately owned, but we have one large one that is corporate owned, so that got to tiptoe around that kind of stuff. And I would love to be able to educate doctors and clinicians. That is huge. That is one huge hurdle that we have not been able to get to yet. I think the challenge with that is a lot of our doctors see between 30 and 45 patients a day, and they just don't have the time. It's kind of like a revolving door for them, and if there's no CUs involved, and they have no interest whatsoever. So how I can approach that, I'm open to suggestions as well. And like again, thank you for the opportunity to share my work. I did not get any pushback from any parents. I feel like if they didn't want their kid, so the cards that I send out do have a lot of information. It requests a telephone number, address, and email, and a lot of them you can kind of tell. Like if they don't want you to have their information, they will not put it on there. So other than that, no, I never had any parents, other than the ones that I reached out to with the high nitrate levels. They were the ones that were kind of, yeah, I already know that I have it. I'm like, okay, so you kind of have to shift your approach and be like, okay, well, I just wanted to make sure, didn't know if you've ever tested it since you put the well in or any of that sort of thing. But I would like to offer you a free state lab. Would that be okay? And then if that lab comes back, I said, I have some other options if you're interested, but by all means, this is just a suggestion. You don't have to take it. So a lot of the parents kind of calm down, be like, oh yeah, and then they start conversation. So again, it's that approach. It's that approach that you have to deal with. I've not ever had any families get crabby with me because of it, so they don't choose to do it, they don't choose to do it. Okay, do I do this for the next one?
No, they'll take, just read the
Okay, gotcha. It wasn't going away. Okay, have you considered bringing some ghost known high water samples to take the focus off high samples? I have not, or just put sample numbers instead of names and addresses. And I do that on my spreadsheet because I do share that spreadsheet with other people. So I will put in my columns, basically, I will do county and town, so we don't have any specifics. Yep. Test strips are notoriously bad for the false negatives or lead of lead because strips don't capture the particulate lead or the similar concerns for night. I would say that our test strips are pretty darn accurate. And again, if we get a high result in the classroom, we do follow up with a state lab because I do go over that with the kiddos. Like I said, y'all are third graders. And we have to go over, don't touch the pads with your fingers, don't touch it with your desk. And like literally, we sit there and be like, okay, where's your strip? Put it up in the air. Okay, where's your water? Up in the air. And I'm like, we got to count. 1, 2, 3. Like, don't do anything else. But I would say that our strips that have come back, every sample that we've done with the state lab has also been elevated. So for the most part, I would say they're pretty accurate. For the RO reimbursement, do you only reimburse for RO systems that are certified to reduce? After I don't remember, is he here, the one that went over the RO system yesterday? Like, I learned a lot from him yesterday. I took a lot of notes because I didn't realize there was such a science to it. No, we did not. And actually, I've not ever had anybody yet want the RO system because it's a reimbursement. People want the money up front. So no, I have not. But like I said, I have learned a lot from his talks yesterday that I may need to tweak my information on my application sheet. So. Is there a reason you choose elementary versus high school age kids? Yeah, they're so much more fun. And like I said, when I originally started this project, I did it based off that book, Mr. Mouse Gets a Private Well. I don't ever have time to read the darn book, so I have left it in the classrooms and stuff, but yeah, no, I really like the 3rd and 4th graders, and honestly, I've given a couple presentations on like my ticks and mosquitoes, 3rd through 6th grade, and I have a lot of the teachers that say that starting in 3rd grade through 6th grade, they're all the same. So I could even expand beyond just my 3rd grade classrooms if I wanted to. We have a similar program with high school students and have had success finding foundation funding. Have you looked into foundations for funding? We have so many funding streams. I literally class code 6 different funding streams just for my programs. Yes, we have. So the program that I got for the RO system is actually a private foundation that we have. We have a couple of the private foundations. It's just a matter of I get a little bit here, I get a little bit there. So you end up with like 10 different grants or whatever, and I have to report on every single one of those, and it's almost like a repeat process. So yes, we do, but within limitations, because it gets kind of messy after a while. Do kids react more strongly to infrared on algal blooms or the nitrates? I would say probably the nitrates, just because we kind of focus on that a little bit more. Because even when we go over the algal blooms, we're still talking about the nitrates and the hot sun and cooking the water and making the nitrates higher and all the stuff. So I would say it's probably more for the nitrates. Still the nitrates. Which do you feel they're more engaged with? Still the nitrates. That's always their big question. So. All right, thank you so much for all the questions, and feel free to come find me.